It's Daytime with Dom. In a post on social media, Andy Murray joked that he never even liked tennis anyway, but the sport certainly liked him. The former world number one retired after losing at the Olympic doubles quarter-final last night with Grand Slam and Olympic titles to his name.
It's gone long. It's all over. The match is over. Fritz and Paul win, but the career is over as well. If we take Andy Murray at his word, that is that.
The Prime Minister has described him as a true British great, while the Queen's Club in London has renamed its centre court the Andy Murray Arena. Someone who knows Andy very well, Orpington's Dr. Roberto Forzoni, and over the years, Roberto, you and I have talked about that incredible strength that he has. Good to have you back on BBC Radio Kent. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Great to be back. Yeah, he had some mental strength, didn't he, Dominic?
Say again?
He had some mental strength.
Oh, yeah, really. And through tough times, Roberto, as well. You know, a lot of... We forget the amount of bad press that was heading in his direction, or people writing articles where they were just trying to sort of almost put him off his stride, but still he managed to do it.
He did, yeah. I remember back in the early days, and he was our number one player, and the press around him was phenomenal. The interest in Andy was phenomenal, but he was always criticised for not being mentally strong and probably not having what it took to become a real champion. And he dispelled all those myths through the course of his 17 years.
He was also criticised for what some people thought through the years was a kind of almost, less than happy chappy type idea. And it's kind of like, well, hold on a minute. He's thinking about what he's doing. He's thinking about the sport he's trying to perform. And maybe he wasn't always about the interview post-match. Maybe on court he was focused in a different way. How did you tap into that with him, particularly when you deal with a lot of peak performance with athletes, but back then you were all about the psychology with Andy?
It was about the psychology. And if you're a 17-year-old, 18-year-old, and you've got 100 cameras pointing at you, asking you questions one after the other, it's daunting. It's really tough to come up with the right answers at the right time. So perhaps you seem a bit dour, you seem a bit down, you haven't got much personality, but that's far from the truth. Andy's a great, great guy. Lots of personality, and that's come out more and more as he's matured in his life.
When you were, as many of us were, having that experience of hearing that news or watching on that screen, like I was last night with my wife Amanda, we were seeing that moment. We thought, this is history in front of our eyes right now. Although this is a game that he may lose at this point, he's also leaving that court at Roland Garros, an absolute hero in so many eyes.
He is an hero in so many eyes. He's dominated British tennis for like 15 years. And that's really unusual, because if you look at any other sport, people come and go, athletes come and go. Football teams, one year someone will be at the top and another year someone else. But in terms of tennis and British tennis, Andy's been at the top for like 15 years on his own.
And how did you work with him? What did you do to kind of get him through some of those matches, some of those performances, some of those landmark sporting historic moments?
The first thing I did, or one of the first things I did, and I'm really proud of this, was put Team Murray together. Because back then, tennis players used to travel with just a coach, and it was quite an intense relationship. And at the time, Andy was with Brad Gilbert, who's a phenomenal coach. But it's very intense because you're travelling together, you're eating together. And I come from a football background, worked with 8 Premier League teams, and everything was team. Not just the team that played, but the team behind the team. So lots of staff would travel with the team. It was unheard of not to have a coach, assistant manager, first team coach, fitness coach travelling with you. So I put that plan to Andy and Judy, and they were for it, and they went for it. And it developed Team Murray, and now every tennis player of repute has got a team around them. But
that's so true. You're so right about the team idea, and this was very at the early stages. And Judy Murray, Andy's mum, very much that key driver and focus. Incredible person in her own right, and that again marginalised by so many over the years. But the reality of that relationship, how did you work within that? And did you ever have any disagreements with either?
No, I didn't, fortunately. And it was funny because when I first got the job as National Psychology Manager for the LTA, I was actually interviewed by Judy before I was allowed to work with Andy. So it was Judy and his agent at the time. And it was having a discussion with them. And then at the end of that discussion, she said, "You really listen well." Because I didn't say too much. I was just listening to what she said. And I got the gig with Andy, and we used to play five-a-side football. He was a funny guy. And like I say, his personality's come out more and more over the years. And I think we'll see a lot more of Andy in the future as well.
We had that moment on BBC TV, the sports coverage for the Olympics. One of my favourite broadcasters, Claire Balding, even she just couldn't hold back those tears, and I'm so glad she didn't. Let's listen to that moment.
That is it. It is now over. And all we can say is thank you. Thank you. You better say something. Don't we pass all the tears on to you?
And I think we all felt that actually last night. It is the Olympics of 2024, but it's also the end of an era. Andy Murray, we won't be saying that name in the same way anymore. I'm sure he'll go on to do great things. But what kind of legacy, Roberto, finally, do you think Andy Murray leaves behind? Team Murray that you were part of?
I think Andy's going to leave a massive legacy in terms of the influence he's had on young tennis players, people taking up the game. There'll be millions of players around the world, not just the UK, around the world, that have taken up tennis, and because of Andy Murray and what he's done and how he's inspired them. So he's going to leave a massive legacy, and it's still involved in tennis, so his mum is involved in coaching and developing players. Jamie's involved in tennis. So the whole family's left a massive legacy in British sport and tennis in particular, and also showing how to overcome lots of adversity and getting through injury as well. And that's a great legacy to leave.
And for your own personal history of your life too, I guess, having just another client maybe, but actually a person who you will always remember that you were part of that story.
Well, it's also indicative, Dom, of the esteem that Andy's held in, because I've worked with hundreds of athletes, Olympic athletes, world athletes, Premier League football teams, but nothing has given the press coverage as Andy has. And we've spoken loads of times on Andy and his career, and that's just a testament to how he's held in people's minds now, and how he changed that from the beginning when people thought he wasn't going to be a champion, and he is a true champion in every sense of the word.
Thanks for being with me on Daytime here at BBC Radio Kent. Thank you for over the years talking to me about Andy Murray and what he was doing at that particular time. It's been a real pleasure.
Pleasure.
No doubt we'll talk again against the next big star of sport that we'll start at the beginning with. Can't believe we did it at the very beginning as well. That's crazy. Roberto, thank you.
Cheers, Dom. Thank you.
Dr. Roberto Forzoni from Orpington. Andy Murray's former psychologist, working with him in that peak performance arena on Team Murray.
BBC introducing In Kent.